Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This podcast is your weekly check-in for all things motivation, education, and inspiration on your path to success with myopia management. And I've got an exciting episode for you today. We've got Dr. Grant Miller back with us. He's a myopia management specialist from Grand Eye Care. He's a partner with Treehouse Eyes Myopia Care for Kids. He was their 2024 Rookie of the Year. Grant, I keep calling you a rising star of myopia management, but I think the star is risen, don't you think?
It's hard I'm not humble, so I still think I got plenty of room to grow into.
That's right. We also have Dr. Justin Kwan here with us. Justin is the head of myopia management at CooperVision. If you follow him on social media, he is all over the country and certain parts of the world getting people fired up about myopia management. Justin, where have you been recently? Tell us about something cool you've done recently.
Yeah, definitely, man. Within the past few weeks, I got the chance or invited out to visit Dr. Nick Despediz's practice out there kind of in the Philly, Jersey area. And it was just cool to see him in action, meet all his patients, make small talk with the patients, their parents, and just see everything in action and get to just chat with him about life and everything that he is and does. And seems like he's still going strong as well.
Yeah, I recently had him on the podcast. I've always wanted to visit his practice. And he said on that podcast, he used to be this person before he got into myopia management that was charting out his retirement. He was like, I hope to be done by my 50s. And now that he's in that part of his life where he's now I think he's in his 60s. Yeah. He's like, I don't want to stop. He's like, I'm trying to figure out how to keep going into my 70s and 80s. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming on the podcast. We're going to be talking, I think this is an episode mainly about implementation, or the title of it is essentially the leaky bucket of myopia control. This was concept that Grant pitched to me, and I was like, why don't you guys come onto the podcast to talk about it? I think there's some great information that'll really help our audience, fine tune their myopia management practice. But before we get started, gentlemen, if our audience needs to or wants to get in touch with you over the internet, Grant, we'll start with you. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
I'm always on LinkedIn talking nonstop about myopia. Email grantmillerod@gmail.com. And if you know Matt and he likes you well enough, he'll give you my phone number and you can text me.
Very much so. And Justin, how about you?
Yeah, similarly, you can message me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. My Instagram handle is JustinTime814. And email is jquan@coopervision.com. And same thing with the cell.
Awesome. Yeah. And I recommend following both of these gentlemen. It is a great check-in to see what they're doing. Always exciting stuff. And of course, if you are interested in this episode or any other episode of the Myopia Mindset, you can find more episodes about everything we're doing at myopiamindset.com. If you want to support what we're doing here, you can support us on our Substack. Our paid supporters get a bonus episode each and every month. They get an extended version of every episode, and you are helping support the mission of us spreading the word about how awesome myopia management is, because we think it's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. So myopiamindset.com is where you do that. All right, Grant, we're going to start with you because I was intrigued by the title, The Leaky Bucket of Myopia Control. So what inspired the leaky bucket title? Like, what does that mean? What is the leaky bucket?
I always like to pull random things out and try to make them relatable. So it's, we keep putting all this effort in of close these consults, convert these people, but then you realize there's all these little holes and opportunities that where, I can train my staff to say some things. Maybe I text a parent information. Maybe I teach people how to say things and kind of give them tidbits of information. So by the time they're in the room, we filled that bucket up. And now it makes that conversion maybe not perfect, but a little easier than what it would have been if they just came in, went through the normal motions, and I said, hey, your child's got myopia.
Right. Right. And Justin, you've been in so many practices. You just visited Dr. D's practice, which is a well-buttoned up, well-oiled machine. What you must have seen tons of practices out there that fit this leaky bucket analogy, where they don't know where the holes are or how to fix them.
Yeah. I think when people say that you cannot get a patient started in myopia control at the comprehensive eye exam, that usually is because there's not a system around it that can make that success happen. And when Grant and I were talking about this topic and this lecture we were going to do together, it really stemmed from the book, The Atomic Habits, which hopefully most of the profession has read by now. And I know we all borrow some ideas from that. But the idea that Grant alluded to is that, small little changes add up to something that actually works better on a more consistent everyday basis. But if you rely on yourself and your fleeting motivation, you might be successful for 2 days out of the week, and then the next week is a dud. So that really doesn't amount to much. But I think what I see from my vantage point is that a lot of doctors still just haven't started, either because they're reticent, they're afraid, they're busy. They don't feel any enormous pressure, but the key is to get started.
Right. And Justin, you're kind of the master of like, keep it simple when it comes to myopia management. And I think that is not, it's like a genius level approach. And I've heard that from so many different docs that I've talked to over the years. Was, well, Justin Kwan says this, and it's often a keep it simple mentality, because I think what happens to a lot of docs who are trying to implement myopia management is they create this gigantic conundrum of how this is supposed to go. And you are kind of an advocate for just like, hey, focus on what you can do it right, keep it simple and straightforward. And I think that this leaky bucket analogy speaks to that, keep it simple. Don't make it overcomplicated, because that's an easy way to not even, get started. Would you agree with that, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Grant chime in here, but I almost thought about like, if you talk to this mom or dad for like a minute, 2 minutes, and then some doctors find themselves talking for 5 minutes, it almost overflows that bucket. And you also get to diminishing returns that way. And we always say, gosh, the more information you put on a patient or a parent, the more confused they will be, the more paralyzed they'll feel. They'll forget everything from minute one. So it almost is not even ineffective, but counterproductive. And so if I want to just leave the audience with, we've are describing the problem of myopia as the eye is growing too long, too fast, and getting weaker. And our job is to do something about that.
Right. And Grant, speak to that, because I know you're somebody that's constantly fine-tuning your approach to your myopia management practice. And I'm sure, like me, you came into the situation like with finely constructed ideas and got, pieces of paper with plans written all over them. How can you give us an example of how you've simplified in order to make a more efficient myopia management practice?
Yeah, take those plans, crumble them up, throw them over your shoulder. Because, it's for us, we know what's going on, but, consumers and parents, no one's heard of this, 10 years of this stuff from industry, but it's still, consumers have not been aware of this stuff. So I always go with the approach of anyone coming to the office doesn't know what's going on. So my goal is from the moment they interact with us, they're going to leave with some bit of information. And what I like about that is, when you put your effort in just trying to pour your heart out and then spending 30 minutes after a comp or a consult and they say no, it sucks. And it wears you out, and burnout's real. And so, I took what Justin said, it's growing too fast, too long, getting weaker, and we're building an emotional connection. This concerns me. Does it concern you? So, now I have my exam, I give my 30-second pitch, read off the parent, and then from there we make a plan of where do we need to go next. Are they ready? Do they need follow up? Maybe they do a virtual consult. And so we've expanded that web to take less stress off of us too.
Yeah. And another thing I'd like to add to that too, which I've heard both of you say in private conversations, is you've also added a lot of times of mentioning, in the past, there was nothing we could do about this, or there was very little we could do about this. And now there's so many options for us to address the problem. And I think that that's a great other, cherry on top of it to add. It really does, make that more engaging and efficient eye exam. And I think part of that leaky bucket approach is that the doctors are putting all of the pressure to convert parents during that exam. Grant, can you speak more about that? Because I think that that's kind of a logical fallacy of myopia management, is trying to put everything on that exam.
Yeah, and I mean that circles right back into atomic habits. You don't rise to the level of that goal; you fall at the level of your system, and so that's part of that conversation of just trying to build this stuff up to where it's a get rich slow scheme. It's the tortoise and the hare. We're moving at a turtle's pace to ultimately get them. By the third, fourth visit, they get it, they understand it, and they're doing it, and that's the biggest thing.
Right. Justin, what do you think about that? Do you agree with what Grant said?
Yeah, I mean, I see the whole gamut. Like, there are some doctors that have a 97% conversion rate at the comprehensive eye exam, and some are doing 50% separate consultation, and then 50% are at the comprehensive. And it really probably relates back to maybe parent personality types and their pre-existing knowledge and biases, and having to diagnose that as a doctor, like reading people, I think is what all of us do, but especially optometrists, we have to cater to all these different personalities of patients and our staff and our team, and but mainly the patients, and how we can in a moment's notice like pivot and meet them in a way that actually has a lasting impression. I think there was something I realized and I learned from another podcast where we have all of the knowledge, we have the authority, the white coat, if you will, but honestly the patient doesn't really care a whole lot. I liken it to almost like when you go get an oil change, what happens, right? They're going to sell you windshield wipers and change out your cabin air filter for a price that's way too much. Maybe our patients feel a bit of that, like they're going to be sold transitions, or something they never heard about, like computer progressives. But what Grant said is key, because they've never heard about myopia control, but they've also never heard about any other eye condition. They haven't heard about meibomian glands. So sometimes we pull myopia like into this like side category of it's too hard because nobody's heard about it. But in reality, it is just a part of everything eye doctors tell patients that they've never heard about before. So I think that mindset might help people, because I think people think, gosh, I talked to this patient for 4 to 5 minutes about the cataracts, when in reality, it was only 54 seconds.
Right.
There's sometimes it's a time warp. And I literally stopwatch people just to like show a mirror to them and say, we can all do this in under a minute. And it feels like not enough, but this is where we incrementally improve and form those better habits.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I once had the benefit of being able to have like a drink or two with a sales expert, someone who taught other people how to sell. And one of the things he told me was like, we have a natural inclination to just blast whoever we're selling to all of the information, because we think we think that they can benefit from it, but they also think it makes us look as good as possible because we have all of this great information. But what we're really doing is we're just overloading them with stuff that they're either not going to remember, or when it comes down to that final decision, isn't going to impact it whatsoever, because they're looking for these key points. Grant, in the past, and that you've been on the past episodes of the Myopia Mindset, you have specifically detailed that you do not find like a magical 100% success conversion rate at first. You really do have to work on it. And that speaks to me, because I grew up in a practice where we were working on patients for 5 years before we saw a conversion. And hopefully it's not like that anymore. But how do you bring this into your practice along that lines of thinking?
Yeah, and it's all of our areas are different. Justin doesn't live too far away from our office. We could practice the same and say the same script, and they're all going to react differently. So it wears you down. But like, our understanding is, hey, we have a lot of immigrants, first generation immigrants, people that are just thinking their child just needs a school exam, and now they can't see what. And so it's just, we know it's going to be slow. So let's just do our best to just drop stuff in slowly. And, we accept it. Our first time conversion, I would love for it to be that 97%. But realistically, we're 50% at best. And then, by year 2, 3, it's just that constant conversation, and we eventually get there. And to me, that's the win. It's eventually happening.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I love everything you guys are saying. I want to address where the leaks are coming from in this bucket, because I think that's important to really focus on. So let's walk through it. I've got the short list in front of me. Grant, let's start with the front desk. how is the front desk? How can that be a leak in the bucket? Because I think most people or most practices would look at the front desk and say, if somebody calls asking about ortho care or myopia management, just have them talk to so-and-so and we'll be good. But that often is not good. Explain to us why that is, Grant.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the front desk from where when a patient's in the office or a phone call, it's not just oh, hey, what's your insurance? Sorry, we don't take that. Or, oh, why do you want to bring your child in? Oh, they just need an eye exam for school. Oh, do they wear glasses? How are their glasses working for them? So there's ways you can spread out these questions before you get to that point of, oh, do I accept your insurance or not? Where you can kind of gasp, oh, maybe this child does have myopia. Let me send you a text message that just talks about what's happening in kids. And what that's doing is it's your first introduction to that parent of, oh, hey, this is something, one, I haven't heard about. Yeah, they might not watch it, but then when they come into the office and they see your CooperVision, your Ability, your Euclid stuff all over the wall, hey, there's another reminder. Then your staff can answer a question on that for them versus, oh, hey, what's this? I'm going to transfer over to them. Phone calls missed, left the message, call them a week later, and then you're kind of left out in the dark with nowhere to go.
Right. Justin, does that line up with your experience? Because you visit practices all the time. You talk with doctors at varying different levels of myopia management. So does that line up with your experience?
Yeah, even if a owner OD doesn't cross-train everyone, there's some baseline level of knowledge, and it ought to come into the weekly huddle and absolutely with storytelling over facts and data. Like we have to always show our team like the why behind why we do these treatments and why we invest this time. It's a huge problem. Myopia is a huge problem that can't be relegated to a few hundred specialists. And so we are a part of the solution as our practice. Goes back to Grant's, what he said about the mission statement, right? In our practice, we don't let myopia get worse here,
Right.
And that's kind of what we lead with. But yeah, I think front desk is a big part. That first impression matters a lot and nobody wants to get passed off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could have someone who calls the practice or comes into the practice, and if somebody doesn't tell them about what they do, then how are they supposed to know? Like the practice I grew up in, if we saw somebody come in with glasses, we would say, hey, how long have you been in glasses for? Like, oh, most of my life, and you're like, get them talking and they say something to the effect of, well, did you hear, if we told you about orthokeratology, because that's what we did back then before it was called myopia management, we would describe the treatment, the process. And then if they were interested, we'd say, hey, I could just see if you're a candidate, and take it from there. And we would catch people that had never otherwise heard of it, or most likely someone else in the practice talked to them about it and they didn't remember it. Let's go to who else can talk about it in the practice besides the front desk. What about the technician? Because oftentimes the technician is in a very important role. They spend a lot more time with the patient than usually the optometrist does. Grant, let's start back with you.
Sorry, Matt. Can we
go ahead.
Go back to the front desk for a second? I thought of something. Even if the front desk on the phone can just say, I'm so glad you scheduled your child for an eye exam with us. You can humble brag. We take really good care of children. Your child's in the perfect place, or something simple like that can maybe go a long way too. All right, Grant, technician.
No worries.
I like that. I'm going to add that to our little protocol. Yeah, I mean, like going into technicians, it's, maybe you have more than one staff member like us. So I'm the tech, which makes it easy when we're doing this stuff. But, you got autorefractor, you got biometry measurements, have your staff understand like where's an abnormal amount. Maybe you have a normal axial length chart. Maybe you have the Chamberlain study tear pad from the MySight information. And, hey, mom, this is information for you to read. Hang out in the room, Dr. Miller will be in here shortly. And again, we're just dangling that carrot in front of them one more time. So by the time I talk about it, then there's some other point where they can pick up that information.
Right. Justin.
Yeah. From the Atomic Habits, again, we are wildly inconsistent as human beings, and that's okay, but we need the help. So the concept is visual cues. We need to have things in the practice, like Dr. Miller said about the posters, but more importantly, I would say the information that they are holding and reading, that's the doctor's visual cue that something has been handed. I recognize the color and the shape of that brochure. And maybe as I walk into the exam room, I will make sure we don't leave until we talk about myopia control. And that really kind of sparked this idea for CooperVision to make an even more, child-friendly tool. We have this 1.5 foot a circular decal. It's a glow-in-the-dark sun. And if you can imagine this decal sitting, let's say on the wall by the slit lamp or on the back of the exam room door, once the lights go off, it's going to glow in the dark. And then either the adult patient's going to say something, what the heck is that? Or the child's going to be like, whoa, what's glowing? And the picture is a sun, and it says, get outside, get off screens, wear my sight. But it's more about the visual. So everybody in the room is like a little bit excited. It's a little different than my last eye exam, and it's something that we can stay consistent talking to them about.
Right. Yeah. And Grant, what does your office do like with visuals? You mentioned the kinds of things that you have available, but you really drive the point home, especially during your myopia events. So what is your office doing for visuals? Because I found that most practices really drop the ball when it comes to, like, do they have messaging and visuals that, are even available in their office, even to just hand out to the parent?
Yeah, I mean, by our coffee dispenser, we have, I think, every single brochure made by every company. We have our Treehouse signage. We have the My Site posters on the wall. We've got the ability information that shows like, here's your risk of you being a -6. And then we got the video in the waiting room, and it's playing videos. I was on WGN, and parents go, hey, who's that guy? But then they'll see that and go, what is that lens? And then back to training our staff. If they don't know how to talk about what ortho-K is, they're like, oh, it's a contact lens. Well, you lost that opportunity to say, oh, we can go on further, and if you're interested, we can schedule you for a free consult. Let's see if your kid qualifies. And so that's there. The rooms are the same thing. We have our what I call visual report cards, which have axial length and refractive error normative values, but we also track, screen time, outdoor time, genetics. So there's all like pluses and minuses, and here's your risk for this kid. So there's all kinds of cues just vomited all over the office.
Yeah. And you can even have, I think this kind of goes back to, the technician who can plant the seeds during pre-testing, because, I've seen in some practices where even they're doing the autorefraction and they notice the information that comes up and shows that the person may be a candidate for myopia management, and just to hand them a brochure from that point. We have to realize that all of these bases have to be covered. We can't put everything on the doctor's shoulders. Yes. Like, I grew up learning that important lesson. Sometimes, the doc doesn't mention everything they need to. Sometimes when he hands you the folder and says, okay, here's what we're going to do with Mrs. Johnson's daughter, Jenny. I said, great. I said, Mrs. Johnson, did doctor talk about ortho-K with you for Jenny? He did. Great. Okay, let's move on to what I have in front of me. So you kind of need all of those aspects of the office. Even down to the optician, right, Justin, who just, they're in the mindset that's just basically about selling glasses. How can we get the optician involved specifically when it comes to myopia management?
Yeah, I think most opticians are great personalities. They relate well with people. They are successful in their craft. And but I think the habit change that needs to happen is like, gosh, when they look at filling a spectacle prescription, if it's single vision, that should like hurt them in their heart a little bit too, right? Because they're now part of hey, did we talk about treatment and keeping this from getting worse over time? Yes, you see this minus number on the paper, but remember that, it's not just a number. It means that the eye is stretching too long and getting weaker in the back. And I just am so proud to be a part of this team that takes care of your child, not just today, but for the rest of their life as well. Even if you move away, I think that's a really cool thing about myopia control. The treatment's not forever, but the benefits are forever. So yeah, the optician, I think, is going to take a bigger habit shift to be like uncomfortable with single vision correction, and to make sure some myopia control treatment was offered that day.
Right. Yeah. And Grant, let me throw this over to you, because, the optician is often in a prime position to notice what I would call glasses abuse. And these can be prime candidates for myopia management, because then they don't have to wear glasses. So if you see that kid's glasses kind of mangled and you could talk about it with mom, like, it's an opportunity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we actually had this happen a couple of weeks ago, because we have a big hospital bias. So we'll get a lot of outside RXs just coming in for glasses. And she pointed out, oh, hey, does he break his glasses a lot? Yes. Well, the first thing is, let's go to an indestructible frame. They'll still find a way to break it. And then she goes, his prescription, he could sleep in a contact lens and not have to worry about glasses during the day. And so, yeah, he was a +4 hyperope, not myopia, but she started the ortho K conversation. And, she's done it before where an outside -3 comes in. Mom, has anyone talked to your child about what's going on with their eyes? And that led to a consult, that led to a conversion. And that's, part of what we're trying to do here is have everyone understand there's something we can do. Let's get the whole staff on board.
Right. And speaking as somebody who grew up being staff, this is a great way to get your staff reinvested in your practice. When I used to consult years ago, when I would go into a practice, I would talk to a staff member and I'd be like, hey, if you're really interested in myopia, this can be a great career path with you. You become a very important part of the success of the practice. And there's a very meaningful investment for you, because what else in life where people can say we have a direct impact on helping kids see better and changing lives? You get to do it directly by being a part of this process. So these are kind of like the micro moments, right? These leaks in the bucket. Which part of the patient journey, Justin, we'll start with you. Which part of the patient journey do you feel is most overlooked? Like where should a doc who's new to myopia management and looking to stop the leaks in the bucket, what's most overlooked? Where should they start?
Yeah, this is not a leak per se, but I think the most overlooked is not having a system to schedule the children of adult patients. And a lot of doctors, whether their practice has been around 5 years, 15, 35 years, not enough kids are getting eye exams still to this day. And so I usually will ask them to share with me their patients that are age 27 to 54, childbearing, if you will, versus age 4 to 16. And what does that ratio look like? And are you over-indexed in adults? Most likely, yes. And are you under-indexed in children? Most likely, yes, as well. So if we think about like getting the team on board, both at the front desk and at checkout, there are opportunities to schedule children of those adult patients. Whether you're looking at the vision care plan authorization and it's literally showing the number of dependents and their names, or whether it's once we finalize the computer progressives, because it's the CPA who's 45 years old. Hey, let's get your children scheduled before you leave for tonight. I think those are the missed opportunities for sure, because you can only start talking to as many children as you have. You have to get those children in the doors of your practice first. So yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity.
Right. Grant, same question to you. Where should they begin? What is the most overlooked part of the patient journey in this equation?
It was really easy to piggyback off of what Justin said, because I was going to kind of go down that route. You talk about front desk and staff, like teach them how to understand IMED and VSP shows family members. Oh, hey, Johnny and Jennifer, have they had their eye exams? Oh, let's bring them in with you or bring them in another day. That's one way to bring more kids in. But then, as you guys know, the biggest thing we hear is, I don't see enough kids. Well, like Justin said, you see those young middle-aged individuals, they might have kids, they might have nieces and nephews, the grandparents have kids. Just talk to everybody about it. And it's like, oh, hey, grandma, you're a -6, you have macular degeneration. Could that be from your myopia? Bring in your grandkids, because there's other ways we can externally pull this in really without doing much more than just talking for a few more minutes.
Reminds me of a grandparent who was watching her 2-year-old, and it was the grandma that noticed the 2-year-old's eyes swing in, and sure enough, she was like +5. And so I think in this day and age, in the year 2025, grandparents are much more involved in the lives of their grandchildren. And I saw something on AARP where each grandparent spends over $2,000 per grandchild. So they can also be a source of help, if you will, to pay for myopia control treatment.
Yeah. And they can definitely be a source of inspiration for what you're doing. I've said this over and over again. Talk about it with every patient, regardless of whether they're a candidate. If you have that grandma sitting in your chair and she's telling you about her grandkids, this is great practice, especially if you're kind of squeamish about having that conversation. You're trying to get your words together. You haven't practiced it as much as you have. Try it out on grandma. You know, if you wouldn't normally consider her to be a candidate for this conversation, she's the perfect person to practice on, because she's definitely going to tell you what she thinks. She's definitely going to tell you about her grandkids, and you're going to find out real quick whether this is working or not. Grandparents are great sources of, they're great sounding boards is the way I should put it.
And whether that grandparent has myopia or not, they likely had a posterior vitreous attachment. So this is why we do what we do.
Yeah, definitely. And let's go through contact information again. Justin, we'll start with you. I know you just spoke, but if people want to get started, they reach out to Cooper, they can reach out to you. How can someone get started?
Yeah. So we do have 25 myopia reps and about 180 other CooperVision reps too, but I can be your starting point. Happy to be that person. Kwan at CooperVision.com, or find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah.
And Grant, how can people find information more about you on the internet and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. Email grantmillerod@gmail.com. And like we said earlier, if you know Matt and he likes you well enough, he'll give you my phone number and you can text me.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, gentlemen. I love these discussions. I mean, this is a perfect example of how, we talk in the community all the time. And I think this is a huge benefit to the audience, because getting started is one of the most difficult steps in the process. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the podcast. And I want to close out with me selling to you, the audience. If you've enjoyed any part of this episode or any other episode that we've done, please consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. You can do so via our Substack. You can find that at myopiamindset.com. And, this is about $12 a month. And I'd like to say that's basically the price of a cup of coffee each and every week. And if you would buy me a cup of coffee to have on great guests like Justin and Grant, so we can nerd out about myopia, and you can get that weekly dose of motivation on your way to the practice, and it's going to happen for you today, then please consider becoming a supporter of the Myopia Mindset. You get extended versions of every episode that we do. You get a bonus episode each and every month, and you help us spread the mission of myopia management. More ECPs should be doing this. It's the best thing in specialty eye care, in my opinion. And hopefully we can get to a place where more docs are feeling comfortable doing it. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. So we'll see you at the next one.